This is Teaching to the Test Pattern.
Hey, buddy, welcome to Teaching to the Test Pattern podcast. I'm Tom White, your host for this episode, all about news show audio. Today, we're going to talk about audio for news broadcasts, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, this is by far the weakest part of my newscasts, in my opinion. Finding the right balance of levels between the talent, the pre-produced pieces, and making that sound good, but also the communication off air has probably been the biggest challenge for me as a teacher. Before we get started, I want to take a moment and thank our sponsor, schoolvideonews.com. Schoolvideonews.com should be your go-to for getting information about what's new in the industry and how it impacts your classroom. You'll find articles from all kinds of industry pros, including the most recent from Teradek about why you can't stream to Facebook. That article dives into RTMPS and how the changes how you get video to Facebook. I know that it hit me a couple of months ago when they made the change, and thanks to Teradek and schoolvideonews.com, I now know why it happened and how I can overcome it. So go check out schoolvideonews.com today for more on what you need to help you get over the hump in your classroom. So audio in a newscast is tough. Let me make this clear. I'm not bashing anyone doing a newscast. I love what you guys do. If you're doing a newscast, you're doing something that other people are scared to do. But I watch a ton of them, and I watch some that sound professional. They sound amazing, and some that sound like they're shot in the stairwell of a 100-story building with a bathroom on the 50th floor. I mean, they don't sound good. They look great, or, you know, again, you're overcoming some obstacles that I may not be aware of. It may be that you're filming in your classroom while a Spanish teacher is teaching Spanish and the gym class is doing jump ropes. I don't know what your situation is, but hopefully today this episode will help you get over that hump. So let's start with talent audio. You know, how do you do it? How can you make a group of kids sound okay when they're developing voices and they may be shy and quiet, or they could be the opposite and blast through your monitors? I see a lot of schools using lavalier microphones, and I know that's what the pros do, and I'm just going to lay it out there. This is one of the few times that I don't want to be like the pros. There are too many things that can go wrong with lavs. I think it's best that we focus on the other things opposed to who has what mic. I recently went down to a college and watched them produce their show. It was by far the most complex show I'd ever seen in terms of people and places and microphones. The director literally created a flow chart of which microphone was to go from one anchor or guest to the next, and it was just crazy. And we won't even discuss transitioning from segments to it was a nightmare for me to watch. The product looked great, but for the director, it was just a nightmare. So my solution for the last couple of years when it's come to talent audio is first to sound condition the room. And I know that this isn't possible for everyone, but it's pretty essential if you're going to have a good sounding show, especially if you're going to cheat in the audio game the way I'm going to suggest in a moment. Sound conditioning means adding things that are going to prevent echoes. Most of our buildings are cinder block walls or are simply just walls that are just flat surfaces. You need to find ways to keep the sound from bouncing around the walls and hitting microphones a couple of times. That's what creates an echo. I've seen schools who've used custom designed sound rooms with floor to ceiling baffles and baffles hanging from the ceiling, and I've also seen schools that surround non-visible part of the set with moving blankets that can be purchased for like $5 and hung from the ceiling. Either way, you have to find a way to limit echo. For the next step, I found that using a shotgun microphone in the studio is what works best. I stole the idea from movie shoots. They all use boom mics, and they have boom operators, so why can't we do that in news? I have tall mic stands, actually they're C stands, that I put a mic clip on, and I place them near the talent, and the microphone it's just outside of the shot, and it's aimed toward the talent's head, and since most of our kids are within the same height, give a foot or so, it works really well. This also allows me to do some really cool things like switch out talent between segments so it looks like I have more people on more sets. If you're using a TriCaster, this is really easy. Our studio only has 2 cameras with teleprompters, so we've had up to 5 students on what looks like 5 different sets and never have to worry about who's on what microphone or if the student's going to touch their shirt while they talk or all the problems that you have with lavaliers. The only downside is that the floor manager must be completely silent. When this isn't a bad thing, but at times it can be an issue if they're shuffling their script or sliding their feet. Using a shotgun has a very tight pickup pattern, and that helps, but occasionally your floor manager is going to be heard or someone's going to bump into something off camera. But a lavalier is not necessarily going to protect against that either. Now, balancing the audio is tough. You've got talent who either speak really loud or really soft, and then you have pre-produced pieces. And it doesn't matter how many times you tell your students to make sure their levels are within, a certain range. Inevitably, someone is going to either be way too high or way too low. And solving this problem is not difficult. It just takes patience, and it takes staying on the students who are producing those pieces and filming those pieces to make sure that their audio is right. But once you get that range set, you may just need to nudge the audio a little bit in either direction, but there won't be a major adjustment. So balancing your talent to your news pieces, or your recorded intros and outros and those type things, it just takes setting that standard and reinforcing that standard as much as you can. Outside of what you hear, as with everything in life, communication is key for a solid newscast. Off-air communication is essential. There's tons of options. I decided to keep our system as simple as possible right now. We use a set of EarTech wireless comms. They're easy. Literally, you set a box up, you hit a button, and you put on headsets. I mean, there's no cables to run. It's wireless. It's good. They aren't crazy expensive, but they're not cheap either. We have the 8-unit set, and I'll put a link to that in the description for this podcast. But my first instruction to everyone on the set is mute your microphone. I always try to keep chatter to a minimum because it'll go off the rails quickly. It may just be a quick comment, and the next thing you know, you have two people yelling at each other over the headset. So again, I mute everyone except for the director and the assistant director. They keep their mics on. If others need to talk, they can unmute their mic just for a moment and then put it back in. As with all newscasts, the director should communicate with the TD and the floor manager. The assistant director is in charge of keeping us on time and aware of the time. The assistant director counts us back in from segments and breaks and helps back time to the end of the show. That way the director can focus on keeping the right visuals up and keeping the right graphics up. I got asked recently about IFB for my talent. I don't know that I need that. It would be nice to be able to say, hey, shift to the right because you're just about to step off the set of the virtual set, or, hey, read faster, read slower. But I think that we can communicate that through the floor manager and do a good enough job. So, but we may do that. We'll get there eventually, maybe. But right now we're going to just stick with our floor manager doing the communication. But I think the controlled environment makes a newscast audio a lot easier. You basically kind of control your sound, control your echo, set up a couple of mics, and you're good to go. Again, I shy away from the lavaliers. I know that that's what the pros do, but this is one time that I'm not really concerned with that. I just want to make good sound. So keep it simple. Again, the shotgun mic, keep it as clean and easy for you. You can run it straight into the camera and use the embedded audio from the camera, so that cuts back on another cable that you may need to run. But you just want to make sure your kids sound as good as they look. Or for some of them, maybe the sound will help them look better. But keep it simple and build from there. Go make awesome. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.
Teaching to the test pattern.